What would you do if the family you just paid a fortune for suddenly told you that you were not family at all? Before we go any further, tap that like button right now. It truly helps this story reach more people. And if revenge stories are your thing, hit subscribe, because this one is about to get very satisfying. My name is Lydia, and I am 34 years old. I run a successful boutique staging firm, and after our best quarter ever, I decided to treat my entire family to a 2-week Mediterranean cruise. I paid $30,000 for the trip. Premium staterooms for my parents, Patricia and Richard. A suite for my older brother Cameron and his wife Courtney. Private excursions in Greece and Italy. I planned every detail myself, hoping it would bring us closer after a hard year. I was standing in the airport check-in line, passport in hand, feeling genuinely excited for once. Then my phone buzzed. I expected a text from my mother asking where to meet. Instead it read, "You are not coming. Dad wants just family. We gave your ticket to Courtney's sister." I stood there frozen, rereading those words. I was the one who planned this trip. I was the one who paid for every single part of it, and somehow I was not family anymore. I stepped out of line and called my mother. Cameron answered instead, laughing into the phone. He called me a workaholic spinster and told me Courtney's sister needed the vacation more than I did, because apparently I always brought the mood down with my serious attitude. When I reminded him I paid $30,000 for this trip, he scoffed and said my staging business was not a real job anyway, unlike his upcoming cryptocurrency venture, which needed this trip to decompress before launch. My mother grabbed the phone next. She told me to stop making a scene, that I had plenty of money and could go to Europe anytime, and that Cameron needed this relaxation more. When I reminded her that I had just bought them a $966,000 house because they were drowning in debt, she did not even flinch. She said, "We let you buy us that house. It was the least you could do after everything we sacrificed to raise you. We are keeping the ticket. Do not call us again until we get back." Then she hung up. I stood in that crowded terminal, watching other families hug and laugh around me, and something inside me went completely cold and clear. I finally understood. I was never their daughter in their eyes. I was their ATM. If you have ever realized that someone only valued you for what you could give them, let me know in the comments, because this story is about to show you exactly what happens when that realization turns into action. And if you are enjoying this so far, go ahead and share it with someone who needs to hear it too. I walked away from the check-in counter, found a quiet table at a terminal cafe, and opened my laptop. I texted the family group chat, "No worries, have a great trip." Then I logged into the cruise portal. My corporate card was linked to every stateroom on their reservation. With a few clicks, I revoked payment authorization for all 4 of them. I canceled the drink packages, the private tour in Rome, the sunset excursion in Santorini, the spa credits Courtney had booked. I removed my card entirely. Once they boarded that ship, they would have $0 attached to their rooms. I took a slow sip of coffee, feeling lighter than I had in years. But that peace did not last long. My phone buzzed with an alert from my property management app. The smart locks on the coastal Florida house I had bought my parents had just been overridden. Someone had changed the codes. My parents were supposed to be boarding a plane. This made no sense. I pulled up the security camera feed. A commercial moving truck was backed into the driveway. Men were carrying furniture through the front doors. My blood went cold. I grabbed my bags and drove straight there. When I arrived, a moving crew was hauling boxes and an ugly leather couch into the house. My sister-in-law Courtney stood in the foyer holding a clipboard, directing them like she owned the place. When I asked what was going on, she smugly told me that my parents had signed the deed over to Cameron the day before, right before their flight. It was Cameron's house now, she said, and I could come pick up my staging furniture next week. She handed me a piece of paper. It was a blank template quit-claim deed, printed from some free website with my parents' signatures scrawled on it. No notary stamp, no county seal, completely worthless. My parents genuinely believed they could hand over a house they did not even own, because in their minds, everything I had was really theirs to give away. I told Courtney calmly that my parents did not own this house. I had purchased it under a blind LLC for tax purposes, paid for it entirely in cash, and my parents were simply tenants under a lease agreement. Courtney refused. To believe me, insisting her mother-in-law had shown them real paperwork. Then she let something slip that made my stomach drop. Cameron was, at that very moment, on the cruise ship, using the fake deed to apply for a $500,000 home equity loan against my property. My brother was not just entitled anymore. He was actively committing bank fraud. I did not scream. I simply walked outside, called my real estate attorney, and told him to list the house for a fast cash sale immediately. Then I walked back inside and ordered the movers to put the furniture down, warning them they were one step away from participating in a felony. The lead mover backed off immediately. Courtney, furious, called the police and reported me as a violent intruder. When officers arrived, I calmly showed them the certified LLC documents and the signed lease agreement proving my parents were tenants with no right to transfer ownership. The lead officer examined Courtney's fake deed, found no notary seal, and told her flatly that it was worthless. She was given 10 minutes to leave the property or be arrested for trespassing. She left in a screaming rage, and the movers hauled Cameron's couch right back out. Once the house was empty and quiet again, I walked through it to check for damage. In the master closet, my foot caught on a loose floorboard. Underneath it was a hidden metal lockbox with my father's initials engraved on it. I pulled it out and tried his usual codes, his anniversary, his old job start date. Nothing worked. Then I tried Cameron's birthday. It clicked open instantly because, of course, even his secrets revolved around his favorite child. Inside were folders with my name on them. Bank statements, forged loan documents, a promissory note for a $150,000 line of credit taken out in my name 12 years ago, when I was only 22, using my forged signature and stolen social security number. Every dollar of that loan had been wired straight into Cameron's very first failed tech company. This was the exact loan that destroyed my credit in my 20s, the one that got me denied for my first apartment, the one my mother laughed at me for and called me financially illiterate over. They had stolen my identity to fund their golden child, then blamed me for the damage. I sat on that floor for a long moment, feeling every last thread of guilt and loyalty toward them completely disappear. I gathered the evidence, locked it back in the box, and called my attorney. I told him I no longer wanted to simply evict my parents. I wanted the house sold immediately, in a 7-day cash close, to a buyer named Harrison who had been trying to acquire the property for months. Within hours, Harrison toured the house and offered $1.3 million in cash, on the condition it was completely empty by Friday. I hired a rapid packing crew that same evening. Every single item belonging to my parents was boxed up and shipped, not to a nice storage unit, but to the cheapest, dingiest 10 by 10 storage unit I could find across town. I locked it with a padlock and kept the key. That night, my mother texted from a port in Greece. The ship had rejected their cards. They owed $14,000 in unpaid bar and excursion charges and could not disembark until it was paid. I read it, and I did not respond. We are already deep into this story, and it only gets more intense from here. So if you have not hit subscribe yet, now is the time, because what happens next involves federal fraud investigators, a fake home invasion call to the police, and a confession nobody saw coming. Also, drop a comment telling me where you are watching from tonight. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Over the next day, my father called demanding I wire the money to save them from embarrassment on the ship, threatening to cut me out of an inheritance that did not even exist. I sent him one final text. I told him I knew about the stolen identity, the forged loan, and that the IRS tends to notice suspicious credit lines opened on stolen social security numbers. Then I told him to enjoy Athens. Silence followed for hours. Then Cameron called, panicking. The bank had frozen every account after their underwriters flagged the forged deed during a routine title search. He begged me to verify the loan so his accounts would unfreeze. I told him plainly that I was not going to help him commit fraud, blocked his number, and blocked my parents too. Just when I thought the chaos was finally settling, my escrow officer called with terrible news. A mechanic's lien for $85,000 had just been filed against the property. from a pool company Cameron had secretly hired weeks earlier to build a luxury hot tub, using the same forged paperwork, without ever paying the deposit. If it was not cleared by Friday, Harrison would walk away from the entire $1.3 million sale. I drove straight to the pool company. The owner, a man named Marcus, was furious about being stiffed by Cameron. I explained the fraud clearly, offered him $20,000 in cash to cover his losses, and asked for one thing in return, a signed affidavit stating that Cameron had fraudulently authorized the work. He agreed immediately. The lien was released within the hour, and the sale closed perfectly on Friday. 2 weeks later, my parents finally flew home, sunburned, broke, and humiliated, having borrowed money from a relative just for economy tickets. Courtney was waiting at the airport with garbage bags of her belongings, since police had already removed her from the property days earlier. The family crammed into a cheap rideshare, and on the drive home, Cameron's phone finally turned back on. A federal fraud investigator called, informing him that his accounts were permanently frozen, pending an investigation into forgery and wire fraud. When they arrived at the house, expecting to walk right back into their old life, their key codes no longer worked. Through the glass doors, they saw a completely different family eating pizza in the dining room. My mother began screaming and pounding on the doors, eventually calling the police herself and falsely reporting a home invasion. When officers arrived, the new owner, Harrison, calmly presented his certified deed. The officers turned to my parents and told them they were the ones trespassing. That is when I arrived, dressed sharp, alongside my attorney, and calmly confirmed I had legally sold the house days earlier. In that final moment of panic, Cameron completely broke. In front of the police, he blurted out that it was our mother's idea all along, that she told him to forge the documents, that he was just following her instructions. My mother's face went white with betrayal. My attorney then handed the responding detective a thick folder containing 12 years of evidence, the forged loan, the stolen identity, the fraudulent tax filings. Within minutes, both of my parents and my brother were being walked to a police car for questioning. My mother, in one last desperate act, dropped to her knees on the driveway, sobbing and begging me not to abandon my own family. I looked down at her, reached into my bag, and dropped a single storage unit key and a $100 bill onto the pavement in front of her. I told her that was the key to everything they had left in this world, and the $100 was for a rideshare, because after this, they were entirely on their own. I did not stay to watch them get placed in the back of that car. I turned around, got into my own car, and left. Cameron was later indicted on multiple fraud charges. Courtney filed for divorce before his bail paperwork even cleared. My parents lost their country club membership, their friends, and eventually faced their own federal case for identity theft and tax fraud. I used the $1.3 million from the house sale to fund something entirely my own, a boutique hotel project I had quietly dreamed about for years. Looking back, the biggest lesson I learned is that love should never be transactional, and family should never be a convenient excuse for exploitation. If you are dealing with people who only show up when they need something from you, know that walking away is not cruelty. It is survival. The energy you spend trying to earn impossible approval is the exact energy you need to build something entirely your own. If this story hit home for you, smash that like button, subscribe for more stories like this one, and share it with someone who needs the reminder that you are allowed to walk away and build your own kingdom. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next story. Script data. I stood there frozen, rereading those words. I was the one who planned this trip. I was the one who paid for every single part of it.